One light, many faces, what all souls see after death. When we look across these stories, the Christian who sees the Virgin Mary, the Muslim who is greeted by the blazing nur of Allah, the atheist who faces a hall of mirrors built from his own conscience, a deeper pattern begins to reveal itself. These visions differ in language, symbolism, and emotional tone, yet they all revolve around one central experience, a radiant encounter with something profoundly illuminating, sometimes comforting, sometimes terrifying, but always unavoidably truthful. So the question naturally arises, if their religions are different, why is the light the same? And what does that tell us about consciousness, death, and the universal structures of the human mind? With that in mind, let us move into the heart of today's reflection. One light, many faces, the universal experience beyond religion. Ultimately, although religions speak different theological languages, the light that appears at the threshold of death is strikingly similar. In Buddhism, it may appear as the compassionate radiance of Samantabhadra. For a Christian, it may emerge as the gentle presence of the Virgin Mary. To a Muslim soul, it may shine as the holy nur of Allah, accompanied by angels of truth. And for a non-believer, the light may arise as the undeniable presence of conscience, a mirror reflecting every choice, every wound, every unspoken regret. Different symbols, different faces, yet all of them point to the same origin, a luminous intelligence that reveals truth. This is why the Bardo Thodol, often called the Tibetan Book of the Dead, explains that the gods and visions appearing before the newly departed are not external deities in the literal sense. They are manifestations of one's own mind, mirrors of truth shaped by faith, morality, fear, and longing. Thus, even if a person is not Buddhist, they still meet the same fundamental radiance, but clothed in the form most meaningful to their inner world. What they see is not a foreign god, but the symbolic language of their own soul. And the text teaches, only those who can stand before this light without fear, only those who can face truth without fleeing, are finally released from the wheel of rebirth and enter genuine freedom. Why one light is not just a metaphor. Psychological and scientific perspectives. The idea that the religions differ but the light is one is not merely poetic. It resonates with decades of research on near-death experiences (NDEs) across cultures and religious groups. Numerous medical studies report remarkably similar phenomena. Passage through a tunnel toward intense light. Encounter with a loving or awe-inspiring presence. A panoramic life review seeing one's entire moral history. A sense of leaving the body. Distortion of time. And in some cases, terrifying or judgment-like visions. These patterns appear regardless of religious belief. A report summarized in Scientific American, in the article Lifting the Veil on Near-Death Experiences, notes that 5–10% of the general population is estimated to have had an NDE at least once. Among people revived from medical emergencies, 10–23% report NDE phenomena. In other words, the light experience is not confined to Buddhist mystics or Christian saints. It is a near-universal human event. Research from the University of Virginia School of Medicine adds another layer. Not all NDEs are peaceful. Approximately 11–22% involve darker, more frightening elements. Experiences that resemble judgment, fear, confrontation, or existential exposure. Even here, the theme remains the same. Light and shadow revealing the truth of the self. This aligns perfectly with our guiding insight. Different religions, one light. Buddhism might describe this light as the radiance of dharmic reality. Christianity might see in it the presence of divine love. Islam might understand it as the nur of Allah. Atheists might interpret it as the mind unveiling its deepest layers. Different names, same phenomenon. As Raymond Moody's groundbreaking work, Life After Life, showed in 1975, people of all backgrounds report encounters with luminous beings, whether or not they believed in a deity. The light seems less tied to doctrine and more tied to human consciousness itself, the universal structure of the final vision. When we synthesize these accounts, a striking conclusion emerges. The soul does not meet the God of a religion. It meets the truth it has carried within itself. For the Christian, that truth may appear as Mary or an angelic host. For the Muslim, it may take the form of questioning angels and divine radiance. For the atheist, it appears as the full weight of memory and conscience. Yet the light behind all these forms is fundamentally the same. This is why the Bardo teaches, "What appears before you is the display of your own mind. The faces may differ, but the underlying illumination is one." So when we say, "The religions differ, but the light is one," we are not merely speaking in metaphor. We are describing a profound convergence between spiritual tradition, neuroscientific observation, and human testimony across cultures. At death, we do not meet a stranger. We meet the truth we have lived. And perhaps the deepest question is this: will we have the courage to face that light without fear? If reflections like these move you, I invite you to subscribe and continue this journey with us. A journey into consciousness, philosophy, and the mysteries that await us all at the edge of life. The one light beyond all faiths, and the descent into the red dawn. When we left off, we explored a profound insight echoed across cultures, religions, and near-death experience research. Religions differ, but the light is one. Buddhists speak of the radiant compassion of Samantabhadra. Catholics describe the tender presence of the Virgin Mary. Muslims speak of the luminous angels, the Nur of God. Even atheists report a presence shaped not by doctrine, but by conscience, memory, and truth. These are not separate gods in competition, but diverse faces of a single phenomenon. The mirror of truth appearing in the symbolic language each psyche understands. Modern near-death experience studies reinforce this. Whether the experiencer is Christian, Buddhist, Muslim, atheist, or secular, many describe a radiant light, a presence of overwhelming love, a review of one's life, a sense of timelessness, a transformation of their worldview afterward. This is why the Tibetan Book of the Dead does not impose a dogma. It describes the structure of consciousness itself, and consciousness, at the threshold of death, speaks a universal language light. But here lies a deeper mystery, and one that sets the stage for the next phase of the Bardo journey. If the first day reveals the light of truth, then what emerges on the second day? If the compassionate deities reflect the clarity of our conscience, what then reflects our fear, our hatred, our unresolved guilt? This leads us into the next valley of the journey, the day when the wrathful gods arise. And so we turn to the ancient text again. The second day, the rising of the wrathful deities. The transition is sudden. The golden radiance fades and the world turns crimson. The sky cracks open with the smell of iron and flame. Thunder rolls like the beating of war drums. In this hellish landscape stand terrifying beings, their faces contorted, skull cups in their hands, serpents coiled around their heads, and countless eyes staring directly into the soul of the newly departed. These are the wrathful deities. Yet the tradition tells us these beings are not demons. They are the mind made visible. Their fire is the fire of our own anger. Their monstrous eyes are our unacknowledged fear. Their skull cups hold the bitterness of our own guilt. The Bardo texts describe them shouting, "You abandoned the light of truth. Now you must walk through the shadows you created. The deceased tries to run but cannot. The ground itself becomes heavy, binding the feet. And then the truth becomes clear. It is not demons that hold him. It is attachment. The illusions of my wealth, my family, my reputation. They reach upward like ghostly hands refusing to let go. The deceased screams, "I'm not ready! Not yet!" Lightning cracks across the sky, and the wrathful gods laugh, a sound like stones splitting beneath the earth. Those who are unprepared, they say, return to the darkness they fear, the collapse of reality. Then comes the next stage of the second day. The world begins to twist. Space itself bends. The sky folds inward. The ground slides like liquid. Faces emerge from the collapsing horizon. Faces the deceased knew in life. People he resented. People he loved but abandoned. People he harmed or deceived. And people he wished to forget. These faces merge into grotesque forms. They whisper in a single voice, "We are the karma you created." He covers his ears, but the whispers echo inside his mind, rising like a storm tide until they drown everything. And suddenly, silence. No sound, no form, no light. Only one thing remains, pure fear. And in that fear, a realization dawns. Everything he saw was a projection of his own consciousness, the shadows of his heart. The wrathful eyes were his own anger. The monsters of greed were the shadows of his own desires. The entire collapsing world was his ego, losing its grip on the illusion of solidity. From a distant place, a dim light appears. But now it is farther away. Each step he tries to take pushes it even farther still. A voice whispers. The third day approaches. If you fail to recognize these visions as your own mind, the gates of deeper illusion will open. And with that, he is left alone in the dark. Psychological and philosophical interpretation. The Tibetan masters understood something. Modern psychology only began articulating in recent centuries. The mind externalizes its deepest fears when the ego dissolves. Why is the sky turning upside down? Why does the ground dissolve? Why does space distort? Because these visions symbolize the death of the structures we once depended on. The sky flipping is the collapse of belief systems. The ground dissolving is the collapse of identity. Space warping is the collapse of time and ego-bound perception. Death strips away every anchor we once used to define ourselves. In Buddhism, this is mind projection Xinxiang, the mind confronting itself in its rawest form. In psychology, it is known as self-confrontation or the eruption of repressed memory, shadow material, and the death of the ego. This is why the deceased sees the faces of those he hated or abandoned. The unresolved emotional residues of a lifetime crystallizing into form. The purpose is not punishment. It is revelation. Fear becomes the mirror, and only when the deceased realizes, "These monsters are me," does the fear dissolve back into light. If he refuses this insight, the fear becomes a prison. If he accepts it, fear becomes liberation. This is the philosophical heart of the second day. So the journey continues, from the one light that transcends religion, into the burning mirrors of the second day, where our unhealed inner world rises in symbolic form. The message is simple, ancient, and universal. In the bardo, nothing comes from outside. We meet only ourselves. If you found this exploration meaningful, and you'd like to continue journeying with me through the mysteries of consciousness, death, and the human mind, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. Your support helps us dive deeper into these philosophical paths with clarity and compassion. Thank you for being here.